guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Now, this episode we're going to be talking about what a news bulletin is. So I want you to follow me and make sure to keep sharing and follow with details because we're going to be learning a lot. On this week's edition of news bulletin and news reading and what it is, you can actually see on my screen there that you have a news bulletin fully prepared already, and it's entitled Major News Bulletin for April 6, 11. First thing you have to notice is the fact that there is a title, which is this, and the title says Major News Bulletin. That tells you about the particular item that you're looking at, and this at here is actually not directing you to a website. Don't get it wrong. It definitely means that this bulletin is going to fly by 6 a.m. although we necessarily add things like this a.m. so it makes it even more complete. Now, after that, you have your introduction, because prerequisitely, and as many culture deserves, it doesn't matter where you are, you necessarily have to greet the people that you're engaging with, and this is communication. Come on. So good morning, welcome to Groove FM Major News at 6. Today, Tuesday, April 11, 2023. You can actually see here that the date and timeline has been indicated, April 11, 2023. Now, because of experience, a lot of us have learned to fly, what I would rather call to fly with just bearing in mind that we must come to this juncture. And this is this point where you have to introduce yourself. I am. So I'm just going to say, I am Adekunle Adejimo. Please follow the progression because you have a lot to learn. Now, it is very much prerequisite that you must come to encounter your headlines. Headlines are the very necessary steps because the headlines helps arrest your audience. Although in some other episodes of the video, we'll be talking about how to couch headlines or how to cast headlines, because you necessarily have to put some ingredients into your headlines. Headlines are written mostly with nouns, verb, and sometimes adverbs. Of course, you have your conjunctions just to make sure the sentences read in complete sense. So you have your headlines. Now, if I was reading naturally, you have headlines. From there, we move to the first headlines. You see River State Commissioner of Police orders arrest of cop assaulting man in viral video. You have that of the National Population Commission and that of the federal government as the third one rather. And here, you now have the conjunction and telling you that we're now maintaining a transition, moving away from all of these stories that are actually reflecting what we have in our locality. As student of communication, you remember there's something called Afghan. So if you're going to file a report in your bulletin, make sure that most of what you have that would occupy a great deal of your bulletin does not talk about things that are very far away from the people. Proximity is something you have to consider. It makes the people difficult. They find it difficult to connect to your stories or to your news. So as you can see, because this is actually a bulletin that we use in our local media, you now have on the foreign scene, we only have one foreign story. And as it progresses, you'll see there's also one sports story, which likely would be a local sports story, and one entertainment story. Now, that being said, on this progression, something is very, very key. You move to the details of the story. So we usually keep our audience waiting with this catchline, details of these and more in a moment. Details of these and more is actually not an innocent statement. I'll tell you why. Of these gives you an idea that from these three initial headlines, which are just meant to arrest the listener's attention because we're dealing with broadcast media here, there are also more stories which reflect the local happening of things. So when you hear of details of these stories, it means there are actually more local stories before you eventually arrive at your foreign story. Okay, that happened. Now let's make progress. Please follow me attentively. So the half style that we use or that I've come to love and adopt is this. Before you head into the details of the story, you usually have more like some catchwords or an iconic word that you pick from the story. So this reads Imo. Imo is a state in Nigeria, West Africa. So it reads Imo. That tells you that what you're about to read in the story solely concerns Imo State. So I'll just give you the first paragraph where you have reactions have continued to trail the United Kingdom's decision. The decision is in regards of placing Nigeria on the red list of countries that should not be actively targeted for recruitment by health and social care employers. So you would wonder that paragraph does not really capture the essence. So we're keeping our listener in suspense. This is now where the meat of the story is. Reacting to this development, to this latest development yesterday during our audience participatory program Face Off, some Emolites, we're now seeing the emo aspect play, some Emolites blamed non-functional medical sector on bad leadership. So we're talking about people moving out in droves, medical students going abroad, and the UK government trying to place more like an embargo on them, and the locals, people of Imo State, are reacting. So you can see what that story entails. Now, the next story is having this iconic word, rivers, all in caps, capital letter that is for emphasis. So you can see this talks about River State Commissioner of Police, Okone Fiong, and I want to spare you the details. Let's quickly go to the next one. This one is about NPC, the Federal Commissioner of National Population Commission in Zamfara, still talking about something happened within the localities of Nigeria. You see have here FG. FG means federal government, and still talking about Nigeria. You can see now something I failed to mention earlier to you. I'll just scroll up quickly. Because we have a news story and you're dealing with a broadcast audience, people that listen, you use your mind to create image. So because you're listening in your head, you have to build image. You listen to the persons. I've gotten comments on several occasions where people would, after listening to me, maybe they get to encounter me on the street, they'll say, you don't look like Mr. Adekunle Adejumo. I mean, the way you sound and everything. That's because there has to be the build picture. Radio helps you build picture in your head. So because we need picture and we need actualities are actually a reinforcement of that story that you're giving. Now, this particular story, what you see here is not for fancy. Yes, we're not window dressing. This cue in, usually have this in most broadcasts, television and radio alike. Cue in actually means here that is a voice that is to play after you are done reading this paragraph. So for most journalism students, once you see cue in, please don't be taken aback. I remember the first time I had to face a teleprompter. I saw this and I just waited for the master control room to play what they needed to play, and everyone was cool. So they knew that I was on top of my game. So that actually means this is a voice that would include opinion sampled from Emolites who are of course complaining about the recent development. And you have this as well, cue in, also another voice for jam. So different media houses have their strategies of placement of these cue in and voice, what you call vox pop, vox populi, voice of the people, voice of God, and we make progress from there. Now, you can see for other stories, we're not able to procure insert, but for this particular one, you have Femi Adesina, GDP, something relating to the economy. Of course, GDP, fun fact, is known as gross domestic product. Okay, let's go from there. So the next story is talking about Buhari, the former president of Nigeria. As at this historical moment of making this video, you can see it's still localized. Even the business story was still found within the African context, African Development Bank, African Development Fund you have here relating to ADF. So let's make progress. Now, I want you to notice something. Before I get to this particular one, this is actually a transition, and is the next thing I'll be talking about. Before I get to this transition, there are also transitional paragraphs. Yes, you have to forgive me because I needed to scroll up to show you something. For the house style of the media, that I'm getting to use the bulletin, of course, where I work, and I also prepare part of this. We don't usually use certain transition, but I'm just going to give you an example so that you see what it's like. Now, this particular story is talking about something relating to the United Kingdom. So, assuming after the story had developed, the health commissioner or the health, okay, let's just say the health commissioner in Imo State as well said something on this matter, aside or besides what the people who are listeners in Imo State had said, and we want to develop the next story. So, you might just have this iconic word, health. Now, if we're to develop the next story, you have something like this: in a similar vein, and the story starts. So I can just spare you the details by bringing up something randomly. In a similar vein, the health commissioner in Imo State, Mr. A and B, had said this and that will be happening and all of that. So you can see that there's a transition. It actually tells you that, listen, yes, we're still talking, the transition in a similar vein helps you to know that we're still sticking to something close to the story. But because the next story does not tally and it's actually in another state and it's relating to matters of the police, you might say, in other news, okay, where did that go? I never saw that coming. So let's say you want to begin this next paragraph and I say, in other news. Now, what this does is help the listener have a mental image of things as it's flowing. In other words, the person immediately realized that we've moved away from matters concerning people of Imo State complaining about the health situation and immigration of health workers, and we're now talking about a different subject matter. So in other news does that. That is a transition for the paragraphs. Now you have standalone transitions. For some media houses, their bulletin runs for, say, maybe 30 minutes or even more. But here this bulletin simply runs for 15 minutes. So you can see this one. This is a standalone transition. You're still listening to Groove FM Major News at 6. Coming up shortly is foreign, sports, and entertainment news. Stay tuned. So Groove FM is just like the test bed that we're using as the bulletin. Of course, I have an affiliate with this as well. Now, when we come back from the break, some media houses do have a salutation written as well, because you also have to welcome the people listening to you. You've just gone on a break, you've just been able to stretch, play some sweepers, play some promo. If you have a commercial to play, you can also play it. So when you come back, you can just say, thanks for staying tuned. This is still Groove FM, and you go on. Then you mention, of course, that you can put the time of the news that you're reading. So what do we have next? If you remember what we had cataloged or what we had written during the headlines, you see the arrangement that after the local stories have been read, the foreign story is next. So you can see here on the foreign news, at least 4 people have died in a mass shooting at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky yesterday. So this is totally something far from Nigeria, but because of the impact, mass shooting and relaxation of gun laws, so to speak, it definitely had to come in here, because if care is not taken, other countries of the world will suffer it, and people of different nationalities are usually victims of mass shooting. So it's something that can gain a global reflection. So it had to come in as a foreign story. So you can see the next icon here, the next iconic word, sports. We're gradually making progress. Just stay with me. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and also drop your comments so that we can get to answer it in due course, and also get you in the know, because this is definitely what you need to have to understand your bulletin. So you can see this is the sports story. Zambian Premier League club Zanaco have announced the departure of their consultant coach Emmanuel Amonike. This is just the first paragraph I've been able to read out, and I told you earlier that there's every likelihood that the sports story would also be a local story. So you can see that it's close to being local because we're still within the African belt. Now we go to, yes, the entertainment. We are at the entertainment story, or we are on the entertainment story. On the entertainment story, you can see this veteran Nigerian music producer Michael Collins Ajere, popularly known as Don Jazzy. Yes, Don Jazzy, who is your guy? Don Jazzy is my guy. So you can see here that we're talking about a Nigerian artist that have advised people to emulate him and how he's been doing things and making waves in the industry. So we move from there. So we have another transition here. The end. This simply tells whoever is reading that the moment you're coming here and you're trying to observe your landing, don't jump to this extent and read the. Imagine if you were reading this bulletin. Okay, let me just quickly start from here. In a tweet yesterday, Don Jazzy wrote, encourage younger artists to work to draw a lesson from Davido's strategy of marketing his album despite already being a big name in the music industry, adding that marketing their own projects would not take anything away from their swag. The end of the it doesn't tally. So this tells you that when you're getting to this point, you should be able to land your story properly, at least with this couple of words. When you land your story, this next transition now tells you that's the end. So because we now have this transition as the end, we give a slight addition to it for whoever is reading or the newscaster on air to know, and will be able to read that that is the end of the major news at 6. Just before we go, here's a recap. So just to tell you that you have to reawaken whatever people had listened to. Every good newscaster always would be able to picture the stories that they've delivered in their mind's eye, even after they are done delivering it. But because you also need to remind your audience that what you have just done is here, you have to now recast your headlines in the past tense because they had been read and delivered already. Now you can see how they are recasted in the past tense. Rivers Commissioner of Police has ordered. We move to the next one. The National Population Commission has assured. So you can see this had been recasted to the past tense because we've already given the details of the story, maintained. People would be able to know that, oh, I just meeting the news when it's getting to the end. And this is that transition again. And on the foreign scene, at least 4 people have died. Okay, so this is basically a complete news bulletin. Now, we have to thank everybody, okay, and those that have contributed. Some newsrooms are quite very complicated, like you have in print, so there may not be enough room to thank people, but in broadcast, you can just exercise that in the briefest of words. So here you have, on behalf of the news editor, and you have this wonderful name that may be jaw-breaking for you, mentioned, the production team, and I am. So of course, I'll go mentioning my name, Adekunle Adejumo, adding the spice, and I say thanks for listening. So you usually have that. But recently, we also developed what you call a public service message. A public service message. Okay. So a public service message is more like something that your radio station or your brand is giving to the people to say, remember, do not drink, do not drink alcohol. I don't know why people say don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. That is quite wrong for me. Do not drink alcohol. Alcohol, is that how it's spelled? And okay, no, I think it's the HOL. Do not drink alcohol when driving and all of that. So you can have this is like a public service announcement. So one other thing we added this time around is a room to people to always give you feedbacks, because no matter how much you make progress in any brand, if you don't have a medium for feedback, it will be very terrible. Every big brand has a medium for feedback. So we usually put something of this nature. We say, for more news, okay, visit our, okay, I wrote out there, sorry about that. Visit our website, website, I almost wrote wedding site. Okay, our website at, so we're going to put that symbol there, of course, www, indicating World Wide Web, and we'll put the station's name, and after that we might say something like for eyewitness report and all of that. We give out a phone number and we announce that is the end of the package for today. So this enables you to have a feedback, and with all of these you would be able to envisage and prepare a complete bulletin. Yes, the rigors are there when it comes to trying to gather the story and make them have a lot of sense, but see, you can always achieve it. So you can always achieve it, just trust me. But subsequently I'll be doing videos on how to get to prepare your headline, casting your headline, as I would love to call it. I don't say to people that the right headline is wrong. You cast your headline so it can be able to arrest the people's attention. Of course, headline sells prints, it sells any medium as long as the news is concerned. And I hope that you've been able to learn a lot from it. My name is Adekunle Adejimo. Don't forget to keep your comments coming, subscribe to this channel, and make sure to follow all the other content that we'll be dishing out. Take care of yourself until I come your way on the next episode. Be well.